I bring you greetings from America. Shortly after becoming a Second Amendment rights activist, I swore that I would never set foot in a state that did not respect my inherent right to armed self-defense. As you can see, I have broken that oath, but I have done so with the best of intentions, to bring you a message of freedom, of solidarity, and of hope. I don't know if I could live in a state like this, but I'm glad that you do. So many gun owners leave states with restrictive firearm laws, and while I can't blame them, by leaving, they make it easier for further restrictions to be passed. You, however, have chosen to stay and to fight for the right to keep and bear arms. So, my name is Erin Palette, and I am the founder of Operation Blazing Sword, and I'm also the Diversity Outreach Coordinator for Florida Carry, which is a sister organization to Maryland Shell Issue. I like to refer to myself as a Venn intersection of oddity, because my political positions are seen by many as mutually exclusive. I am a gun owner who believes in LGBTQ rights, and I am a transgender woman who believes in the right to keep and bear arms. The reason this may seem odd to you is because Americans have, for decades, been told that gun owners exist on the far right, and that the LGBTQ community is on the far left. And between these two positions is a stark cultural divide, and therefore both sides can never agree on anything. And this is, of course, pure nonsense. Especially if you believe, as I do, that both gun rights and gay rights are civil rights. Then you see there's quite a bit of overlap. Come to the libertarian side, it's great. Given my audience, I think I can skip my argument regarding why gun rights are civil rights. Yes?
Yes.
Excellent. On to the LGBTQ rights. All right, I see that some of you are shifting uncomfortably. Don't worry, I'm not here to wag my finger at you or lecture you about gay marriage. I'm just going to give you some information you didn't have. Now, according to a 2012 poll, approximately 3.4% of Americans self-identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Now, to put that into perspective, as of the 2010 census, 4.7% of Americans are ethnically Asian. However, despite being such a small percentage of the population, we are in fact disproportionately vulnerable to violence. According to a 2014 study by the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs, 20 to 25% of LGBTQ people experience violent hate crimes within their lifetime. Now, I want to specify violent hate crime, not witnessing graffiti, not being called names, but violence. A full quarter of only 3.4% of Americans are likely to be victims of violent crime, including assault, rape, and murder. The most spectacular example of which being the Pulse terror attack in Orlando last year. And so, given this, you would think that the LGBTQ community would decide that the best way to keep itself safe would be to learn how to use a gun and carry a lawfully concealed weapon. But it doesn't, and I have to explain why. But first, a bit of a sidebar here. I understand that saying LGBTQ is a mouthful. I can do it because I've practiced it. But if you don't want to stumble over it like President Trump did during his campaign, and God bless him, he tried, there are two things you can do. First, think of it like the name of a Star Wars character. LGBTQ. Are there any geeks here in the audience? Okay, all right, so if you can pronounce the name of Jedi Master Kai Adimundi, then you can pronounce LGBTQ. Now, the second, it's a little more serious, but if all else fails, just say the queer community. Use the word queer instead of gay, because queer is not specific to sexual orientation or gender identity. It's an umbrella term that can encompass a lot of people without specifically defining them or excluding them. So now, if anyone asks you, hey, what did you learn at the Maryland Shell issue meeting on Saturday? You can tell them, I learned that the queer community is a Star Wars character. All right, so back to why the queer community issues firearms. So remember when I said that only 3.4% of Americans are LGBTQ? That's a small sample of such a large country. And like most demographics, we like to hang out with each other. In fact, it's necessary for a lot of us if we're ever going to find partners, husbands, or wives. Now, while the internet is great for this sort of thing, please keep in mind that the internet is a relatively recent invention, whereas people seeking homosexual partners have been around for much longer than that. And for a lot of that time, it was not only culturally unacceptable, but also illegal, and could result in jail time or death. Therefore, it follows that the stereotypical gay man seeking other gay men wouldn't stay in a rural area where it would be impossible to find a companion, but would instead move to a big city where the attitudes are more cosmopolitan, and the sheer population density would put the odds of finding a mate in his favor. So as queer demographics favor the urban over the rural, so do queer politics. And this results in supporting the politics of the Democratic Party, which also exalts the city over the countryside. And this support was richly rewarded in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, when the Democrats became the champions of the gay movement. Now, as we all know, the Democratic Party is not favorably disposed towards the right of the individual citizen to keep and bear arms. All right? And so the political culture of the LGBTQ community has also begun to see gun control as desirable and gun ownership as violent and gauche. Thus, the reluctance of queer Americans to arm themselves for lawful self-defense is the result of identity politics. Although, to be perfectly fair, using identity politics to advance the status of such a small and easily victimized group is quite understandable. And then the terror attack upon Pulse happened on June 12th, 2016. And everything changed because the queer community saw themselves attacked as a demographic. Prior to this, violence against LGBTQ individuals was seen as precisely that, individual. While it was understood that hate crimes happened, the perception was that they happened to queer persons in specific circumstances. In other words, it was seen as a very personal form of attack. An excellent example of this is what is known as the gay panic defense. Your Honor, I was just minding my business at this bar when this gay man came up to me and he started making passes at me, and I was just so disgusted I didn't know what to do, and so I had to beat him. There's a similar version of this known as trans panic. Your Honor, I met this girl, we hit it off, I took her back to my hotel room, I lifted her skirt, I saw a penis, and I was just so disgusted that I panicked and had to beat him. But the Pulse massacre was different. The shooter didn't attack a specific queer person. He attacked every single person in that club. And this shocked our community, not just because it was brutal and barbaric and cowardly, but also because we finally realized it really could happen to any of us at any time, in any place. Now, I'd like to take a moment to make a very specific point here. I do not believe that the LGBTQ community is in more danger now than it was before Pulse. But this is rather like saying that America was in more danger from Al-Qaeda on September 12, 2001 than it was on September 10th. Now, the danger was always there. It just required a shocking act to shake us from our reverie and get us to see it. Speaking of terrorism, after the Pulse terror attack, something remarkable happened. The Democratic Party, the party of gay rights, threw the queer community under the bus by refusing to call what happened at Pulse a hate crime or a terrorist attack. And many in my community realized that the party which they had supported wouldn't protect them because it feared the political backlash of calling the Pulse murderer a Muslim, killing homosexuals in accordance with his religion, or of suggesting that he was questioning his own sexuality and lashed out in his own form of gay panic. And we felt betrayed. More than a few queers looked at how long it took the police to stop the killing and thought, you know, instead of being at the mercy of a madman for hours, maybe I'd like the personal agency to defend myself. And this was a watershed moment in the history of queers and guns. But remember, the queer community at large hates the notions of citizens engaging in armed self-defense, as shown by the post-Pulse remarks of George Takei and the rise of anti-gun LGBTQ activist groups like New York-based Gays Against Guns. There is such a stigma against owning firearms that admitting you are a queer gun owner is known as coming out of the gun closet. And it carries nearly identical results to coming out socially last century. Social ostracism, loss of friendships and or jobs within the community, and even a technique known as naming, shaming, and blaming. So, gun-curious LGBTQ find themselves in a precarious situation. In order to learn, they must first out themselves as wanting to shoot guns before they have the opportunity to truly commit to gun ownership. Further, to whom do they go for instruction? Most queer gun owners are deep in the gun closet. Moreover, the gun-curious cannot even get instruction outside their community because just like we have been taught that the LGBTQ community hates us and wants to forcibly disarm us, they've been taught that gun owners are all, now sing along with me if you know the words, right-wing, heterosexual white males who of course just hate them fags and want to see them all dead. So the gun-curious don't feel safe, let alone comfortable, going to a shooting range to get instruction, or walking into a gun store and asking advice, because they've been told that gun owners are so hateful and violent that they'd as soon shoot a queer as look at one. And this is where I come in. On June 13th, the Monday after the Pulse massacre happened, I noticed something remarkable. Gun owners across social media were posting not only messages and pictures of support, but they were also offering to take to the range for free anyone who wanted to learn how to shoot in self-defense. They were offering to provide everything: the guns, the ammunition, the ear and eye protection, the targets, pay for the range fees, everything, because human life was precious, and everyone, including their political opponents, deserve the ability to defend themselves effectively. And I was amazed that during all the finger-pointing, people who were supposed to be ideological enemies with the victims, people who, according to the media, should have been chortling about fewer votes against gun control, were instead reaching across that political divide to say, hey, you have value. Your life matters to me. I want you to be able to defend it. And if you want to learn, I want to teach you. Now, as I've said before, my feet are in two different camps: the Second Amendment activism camp and the LGBTQ rights camp. And I thought, these offers are beautiful, but their intended audience isn't going to see them. I just happen to be one of the few people who has the ear of both groups. I'm going to compile a master list of all these people offering to help so it can be seen and shared by the queer community. And so I began typing up a list of the names, cities, and states, and contact information of the volunteer firearm instructors on Facebook. I expected that I would get about a couple dozen names and that would be it. Well, I started writing at 2:30 in the afternoon. When I finally crawled into bed, 12 hours later, the Facebook post had become a Google map with around 100 instructors in various states across the country. And I acquired assistants, plural, to add the names to the database for me because they were coming in faster than I could keep up with. In the first few weeks after Pulse, I would regularly wake up with over 100 new emails of offers of volunteer in my inbox. That's a difference of 3 days.
Wow.
That was the birth of Operation Blazing Sword, and it has only continued to grow since then. We now have over 1,420 trainers in our database. They are in every single state of the Union. Yes, even Hawaii, as well as the United States Virgin Islands, and even Canada. We are international. Right now, our goal is very simple: to offer free firearms safety education and training without judgment to anyone who wants it, regardless of their color, gender, sexual orientation, biology, or manner of dress. And this wording is very specific for several reasons. 1, education. The left likes to say that they don't believe in abstinence-only sex education. So why then do they insist upon abstinence-only firearm education? Now, I disagree with that approach, and I believe that knowledge is critical to make an informed decision. Our instructors don't pressure our students to buy a firearm. If, after getting their instruction, they decide that firearms aren't for them, that's fine. They've still made a decision based on facts and experience, not fear and what they've been told to feel by the media. Moreover, they've still learned the lessons of safe gun handling, such as Colonel Cooper's 4 rules. And that is important knowledge for any adult in America. 2, free. After any gun-related tragedy, sales of firearms and ammunition increase, and both the NRA and the gun lobby are accused of selling to fear and profiting off that. But our instruction is free. If it's free, we can't be selling anything. Operation Blazing Sword is a non-profit organization, so we do not and literally cannot profit from any of this. Also, the cost of training, the firearm rental, ammunition costs, range fees, and instructor time, etc., can be a barrier to entry for students who don't even know if they want to try this. It's one thing to try something new if it costs you nothing. It's completely different when trying something new carries with it a price tag of $50 or more. And this reluctance is only increased when there is already social pressure against learning about guns, as I mentioned earlier. So making this very basic instruction free removes another barrier to education. And 3, anyone. While Operation Blazing Sword's message is tailored to reaching out to LGBTQ people, we will in fact teach basic gun safety and operation to anyone who is legally able to hold a firearm. We do not discriminate. We are simply making an extra specific effort to get the word out to the queer community that they are welcome to fight the cultural conditioning that has told them that they aren't welcome. But extra effort does not mean only queers are welcome. If a straight white man wants training, we will gladly do it. Now, I am often asked how many queers has Operation Blazing Sword taught to shoot? And the honest answer is that I don't know, because I respect their privacy. I'm not going to force them to out themselves to me. However, some students are so enthusiastic about being empowered, or just want to talk about their new fun hobby of shooting, that some have contacted me to thank me, or to praise a trainer. I personally know of 5 students who have gone on to acquire their concealed carry permits. And I operate on the principle that for every known student, there is at least one more who wishes to keep quiet. My biggest success is in fact Operation Blazing Sword's first student ever, a transgender man in North Carolina. After instruction, he bought a pistol, acquired a concealed carry permit, bought a hunting rifle and a hunting permit, began harvesting deer, and he has even started his own Operation Blazing Sword chapter in Raleigh, spreading the message to other gun-curious students and helping to teach them. So speaking of chapters, I need to clear up a very common confusion. We are not a branch of the Pink Pistols. We are sister organizations with similar goals, but very different methodologies. For example, Pink Pistols is specifically a social organization for queer shooters. We seek to pair students with teachers regardless of orientation. Pink Pistols is local. We are national. The Pink Pistols have no national leadership at all, only city-level chapters, and some states, like Maryland, have no chapters at all. The closest Pink Pistol chapter to here that I can find is a restricted Yahoo group based out of Northern Virginia. And because it's restricted, you have to petition for membership before you can join the group, which means, attending a meeting is rather difficult. On the other hand, this is a map of Maryland, and you can't count them all because each dot is not an instructor, each dot is a location. Some of those pins have multiple instructors. There are 18 Operation Blazing Sword instructors in Maryland alone, including our very own John Mountjoy. And finally, our focus is on the initial education and training. Pink Pistol chapters are more focused on being a shooting club. And this is actually a good thing because they keep LGBTQ shooters interested in the hobby and active in politics through events and camaraderie. It's my hope that after we, Operation Blazing Sword, trains new gun owners, those people go on to join or create Pink Pistol chapters. Another frequent question I get is, what are your goals for the future of your organization? And that is a wide open question. In the immediate future, I'd like to be able to offer fully funded safety seminars, range days, and concealed carry classes on a city scale, such as by buying out a shooting range in Orlando and making it services free to anyone who wants Blazing Sword instruction. Further on in the future, I'd like to branch out to other demographics who find training difficult, such as the elderly and the handicapped, and teaching them firearm safety. Way, way off in the future, I'd dearly love to be the pro-gun version of Bloomberg. So if you would like to donate to Operation Blazing Sword, you have several options. We have a PayPal link. Yes, I'm hitting you up for money, folks. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible charity. So you can send us money via this handy link, paypal.me/opblazingsword. You can send a physical check to our address, 800 Belterre Parkway, number 200-302, Palm Coast, Florida, 32164. I'll write that down for anyone who wants it. Or third, and this is the most fun, take someone shooting and pay their way. Thank you all for your attention. I will now open the floor up for any questions you may have.